Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was a bagworm named Noah. Noah the bagworm lived in a quiet forest that was nestled in between two hills. And even though Noah was just born into the world, he had a heart for adventure and couldn't wait to live his life. He knew that one day he would get wings and be able to fly. But it would take some time, and there were a lot of things he had to do before he could get his wings. On the crisp spring morning when he was born, on a branch of a pine tree, Noah the bagworm, as a bagworm larva, and hundreds of his brothers and sisters just hatched out of their mother's bag, way up high on the tree. He was tiny and wriggling around to find his place on the tree. Noah the bagworm was in wonder at the bustling world around him. He noticed that everywhere on the pine tree, his siblings were already munching away on the pine needles, eagerly starting their lives. Noah tried to find a spot for himself, but every branch seemed overcrowded. "Excuse me, is this spot taken?" Noah the bagworm asked the sibling bagworm larva. "Yes, find your own, please," the bagworm sibling said, stuffing another pine needle into its mouth. Noah's tiny heart sank. He was hungry, and there was no room left on the pine tree. It was so crowded. He loved being at the tree he was born on and didn't really want to leave, but there was no food for him there. Determined to find food and start his life, Noah decided to move on, even though it meant leaving the tree he was born on. "I'll find my own place to eat," Noah said to himself. He began spinning silk from his mouth, letting the thread trail behind him as he wiggled over to the edge of the branch. He was getting ready to go to another tree, where there would hopefully be more food for him to eat, since the pine tree he was born on was already full. As he waited for the wind to come and balloon him away, all he could think about was getting to fly to a juniper tree. He heard great things about juniper trees when he was an egg and how yummy the needle-like leaves were. So as Noah the bagworm, as a bagworm larva, waited and kept spinning silk out of his mouth, suddenly, a gust of wind whooshed through the tree, catching Noah and his silky lifeline along with his other bagworm siblings who couldn't find food on the pine tree as well. And he was caught up into the air, ballooning away from his birth tree all the way to another tree. He was carried through the air in the gust of wind. "Whee!" Noah the bagworm squealed as he sailed through the air. The world blurred around him until he landed, gently swaying, on a juniper tree. He realized the tree he landed on and grinned. "Juniper, my dream tree!" Noah shouted. Noah the bagworm wasted no time getting to work. He began spinning silk all around his body and then collecting tiny pieces of juniper needles, twigs, bark, and whatever else he could find around him, weaving them together with silk to form a snug little bag. It didn't quite look like the beautiful bags that the other bagworms were making around him, but it was his bag, and he was making it the way he wanted to, and from the stuff he could find around him. And he was very proud of it. Noah turned behind him to look at his bag that he was creating, and he said to himself, "Hey, my bag looks pretty good. Not a bad bag." He layered the outside of his bag for the time being to make it sturdy and camouflaged, so he can blend in with the tree. Inside the bag, he lined it with soft silk, making it cozy and warm. "A perfect home for me," Noah the bagworm declared. Building his bag taught Noah his first life lesson. Home is what you make it. Even though he felt lonely leaving the pine tree, and even though his bag wasn't as good looking as the others, he put a lot of time and effort into it and made it into his own liking. And he realized he could create a safe and special place wherever he went. He felt a newfound confidence in his ability to adapt and thrive, or make the best of and be comfortable wherever he went. He had his own home for this stage of his life. As the weeks passed, Noah the bagworm grew a bit bigger and stronger, now as a bagworm caterpillar inside his little bag, which was also getting a little bigger with him as he continued adding pieces to it. It was a little bigger, but it wasn't as big as the other bagworm caterpillar bags that lived on the juniper tree with him. But he made sure it was strong. He would stick his head out every now and then to munch on juniper needles, but always stayed alert for danger. One day, while he was chewing happily, a shadow passed overhead. Noah froze as a bird landed on the branch above him, and he tucked his head inside his little bag. What's this?" the bird chirped, pecking at Noah the bagworm's bag. "Maybe it's some food, but I have to try to open it." Noah clung tightly to his little home as the bird started pecking at it. His heart pounding. "Please hold together, bag. Please hold," he whispered. The bird pecked a few more times before flying away, uninterested and unable to break open the bag. Noah the bagworm then let out a deep breath, thankful that his bag was strong enough to protect him. That day, Noah learned his second life lesson. Being strong doesn't always mean being big. Sometimes it's about being smart and prepared. His sturdy, well-built bag had saved him, even though it wasn't the biggest on the juniper tree. As summer rolled on, Noah the bagworm's body began to change as his stage as a caterpillar was coming to an end. He felt an urge to prepare for something big, something exciting. "I think it's time to pupate and move on to my next stage in life soon," he told himself. "I guess it's time to tip myself over this branch like the other bagworms and get ready for my new chapter in life." Noah was excited, but was also nervous. He said to himself, "I put so much time into this bag and it's been my home for so long. I'm gonna miss this bag once I change and grow. I know I won't be able to come back into this home after I get my wings, but I'm sure thankful for all the great adventures I had in this home I built for myself." Carefully, he spun one last strong thread of silk and secured it to the branch he was on. And with a deep breath, he wiggled his now bigger bag and shuffled to the edge of the branch. He was anxious and didn't know what the future would hold after he went over the branch. But he knew he couldn't just stay a bagworm caterpillar his whole life. He had to grow up and grow wings so he could fly. So he wiggled and shuffled some more on the branch until he tipped himself over the edge of the branch and let himself dangle from the silk thread, swinging gently back and forth and spinning around. And he pulled his bag up toward the branch so it was connected to it, looking like it was part of the tree. Weeks went by, and Noah the bagworm hung silently inside his bag while in his stage of pupating. Every now and then, he felt the tug of curious squirrels or the scrape of insects on his bag. But his home remained strong, and nothing could break it open. Inside, he focused on his transformation, marveling at the changes happening to his body. He thought about how far he had come since hatching on the pine tree months ago and ballooning onto the juniper tree where he grew up and was now becoming an adult. When the summer ended and the air turned cool, Noah the bagworm knew it was time. He wriggled and pushed and shuffled around and finally broke free from his bag, crawling out of a little opening. The bright sunlight greeted him as he stretched his newly formed wings and began to fly. What? Wow! I can fly! Noah the bagworm shouted, now as a bagworm moth, flapping his wings joyfully. He was a bit clumsy, but he was getting the hang of it, using his wings and flying around the juniper tree and taking in the sights from above. As he flew and hovered near his old bag, a huge sense of gratitude came over him. The bag he had made and was looking at from the outside had been his home and protection for such a big part of his life. "Goodbye, old friend," Noah the bagworm said as an adult bagworm moth fluttering away. Noah's journey taught him his third and most important life lesson. Change is a part of life, and it helps us grow. Even though he left his bag behind, he carried all the lessons he learned in his heart as he flew away into the crisp autumn sky. Noah felt a sense of accomplishment and joy. He had grown from a tiny larva on a pine tree to an adventurous and eager caterpillar on a juniper tree to a strong and wise moth ready to take on the next chapter of his life. And he learned that even the smallest creatures can face big challenges, make the best out of any situation they're in, and come out stronger on the other side. And the bagworm, now a bagworm moth, lived happily ever after. The end. The bagworm, or the cycadae, or otherwise known as bagworm moths, bag moths, or case moths, are in the family of Lepidoptera, which are butterflies and moths. Bagworms are very small and have about 1,350 different species. Bagworms are found all over the world. Bagworms are insects that build protective bags to live in, made from silk and bits and pieces of leaves, twigs, and other materials they find around them. They're often called bagworms, but actually they're moths and spend most of their time in their larva stage or looking like worms or caterpillars. The bag they use isn't really a bag, but an encasement that they build to be a temporary home while they go through changes at different stages of life. And it acts as a disguise to camouflage them to blend in with the trees that they live on when they're young and developing into adults. The camouflage helps them hide from birds and other predators. Bagworms go through different stages of life. A female bagworm can lay up to 1,000 tiny eggs in her bag, and once they're laid, the female bagworm dies in her bag, but the eggs stay safe throughout the winter. In the springtime, the bagworm eggs hatch, and tiny larvae come out. These baby bagworms climb out of the bag and release silky threads, and some ride winds to parachute them or balloon them to carry them to other trees and plants. This is called ballooning. They use the silky threads to catch the wind, and they're thrown with the wind to the next plant. Once they find the plant that they're living on, they immediately start to build their own bags from materials nearby, and they begin to eat leaves so they can grow. When these caterpillars are fully grown, they attach their bags to a branch and seal themselves inside. Inside the bag, they pupate in a resting stage where they begin changing into moths. In the fall, adult male moths come out of their bags with wings to fly around and find a mate. Female moths never leave their bags, and they spend the rest of their life in their bag waiting for a male to visit to help them lay eggs. Bagworm caterpillars eat the leaves of many trees, especially evergreens like cedar, juniper, and pine. If these evergreen trees aren't available, they can also feed on other trees like maple, oak, and birch. Bagworms aren't very picky eaters, but they can sometimes damage trees if there are too many of them. That's why they're known as an invasive species. Bagworms can be found on trees and bushes, in forests, gardens, and yards. They can live pretty much anywhere they see trees growing. Because they can camouflage so well, their bags usually look like they're part of the tree, kind of like pine cones or dried up leaves. The bag that the bagworm builds is like a home it carries around everywhere. It protects the bagworm caterpillar from predators while allowing it to move around. The bag is camouflaged too. It blends in with tree branches, making it hard for birds and other predators to spot it. Adult bagworm moths don't eat. Their main goal is to find a mate to help lay eggs. Bagworm bags can grow up to 2 inches long as they keep adding more leaves and twigs as they grow. Sometimes these bags look really cool, with interesting patterns from the material they use. And if you ever see one, you might see the bagworm caterpillar poking their head out to nibble on leaves before going back into their bag. Have you seen a real-life bagworm before? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!